You don't know how to get it into words.
Yeah, and she's very overwhelmed. So she did the best she could, but the 911 operators didn't know that this woman was in a vegetative state. Mm-hmm. They didn't know that they were at a healthcare center. Mm-hmm. They didn't know these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But the nurses were able to resuscitate the baby through CPR, guided by a paramedic on the 911 call, and the baby lived. But then paramedics were still sent to the facility anyway. Mm-hmm. So the nurses on staff were shocked when this girl gave birth because nobody had any idea that she was pregnant at all. And before I get into what happened, I wanted to talk about Hacienda because they went under extreme scrutiny when this happened, and a lot of things came to light.
You know, I will say, and my first thought, as fucked up as it is, who knows how long she was being raped, and maybe you do know now. Mm-hmm. The baby is like kind of it's a whole, like, I guess what I'm trying to say, I don't know how to say it without, but because she had a baby, they can fucking find the piece of shit who did it with DNA. Like, that was my first thought. I'm like, the worst thing that could happen, but I'm like, at least they fucking know what's happening now, and they can DNA test and find this motherfucker. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's the end of it, essentially. Yeah. So I can't speak to the facility of the nurses and the doctors and, like, how good or poor their performance was. Mm-hmm. However, I did find reports of other incidents happening at Hacienda. So one incident happened where a patient hit a staff member in the face, which often happens with assisted living situations. Mm-hmm. So the staff member hit the patient back and then pushed his walker too far away for him to reach. So he had to slowly crawl and get it.
Oh.
And again, people are fucked. So it's like, I'm not sure if Hacienda is responsible for that. Or it's like with the Angel of Death case from a few episodes ago. Like, I mean, you did hire them, and Hacienda did have extensive background checks, but it's like...
Right, but, like, the patient is hitting you because this is their fucking life, and they're so angry and frustrated.
It's your job to stay calm for the patient. Right. It's not their job to stay calm.
Correct, yes. It's like if you're a teacher and a child throws a fit, you don't get to throw a fit back. Like,
yeah. You signed up for the job of taking care of this person who's going to throw a fit, whether they throw a fit or not.
This is why I drink, because I'm motherfuckers like them.
Seriously. So Hacienda also ran infant clinics throughout the state without the licensing to do so, which was a little odd.
What's an infant clinic?
It's giving medications and vaccinations to infants in need. So I'll explain kind of one incident. So in one incident, they gave infants too large of a dose of a medication, and they would often share the medicine between infants, which isn't very sanitary. And when a clinic or facility isn't licensed, it means that no one is keeping an eye on them or holding them accountable to certain standards.
Which is sad because it's clearly, like, I'm assuming lower income families who are really putting all their trust in them.
Mm-hmm. These people weren't being checked up on by, like, state or federal.
But it's people who are like, look at me, I'm trying to be great and doing things for you, and, like, bring your kid to me, and I know you don't have a lot of money, but I want to help you.
And they were trying to help, but they were just being lazy about it. Yeah. They just didn't get the licensing when they could have. They should have.
Yeah.
Like, they were putting on these clinics for, like, 8 or 9 years or something. They had plenty of time to get the licensing.
This case is gonna make me angry.
It's crazy what goes under the radar, though.
Yeah.
This is recent. This is happening now.
But
in the town I live in.
But it still went under the radar, because I had no idea this was happening in our fucking backyard.
Yeah. Fun times. So
By the way, it's Sarah who drops all the F-bombs.
No, it's not! No, it's not. So other issues happened, like when you work, I don't know about in Arizona, I don't know if it's a state law or a federal law, but in Oregon it is a law, which is where I'm from. If you work as a healthcare professional or a teacher or something like that, you are a mandatory reporter when you see signs of abuse.
I think that's a federal thing.
Okay.
I think that's part of the oath you take.
I think that it is too. So other issues happened where there were clear signs of patients experiencing familial abuse when their family members would come in, and nobody reported some of those incidents, and they would ask the patients, like, you have a black eye, why? And she'd be like, that's what I do. That's what happens to me when I get in trouble with my family. Like, and they were like, okay. Like, things like that. You're like, no, that's not okay. Like, it's your job as somebody who's taking care of someone to bring that to light.
They can't speak for themselves. And
So, things like that happen.
Does R. Kelly work here?
R. Kelly! Get out of every story. So, it makes me also think, though, that all facilities will have issues. Like, because people are flawed and because people have issues. But is this more issues than what would be expected?
I have no faith in humanity at all.
But also, are these incidents the same as, like, every hospital has incidents? Like, I don't know if it's different.
I think it's hard because, like, I'm going to toot our horns. We're good people, right? Like, if I say I'm going to help someone, I'm going to help. Like, we have really good intentions. And I think, and most people I know do. And it's easy to believe that everyone does. Yeah. And I'm like, he's a doctor. Of course he wants to help people, but they don't, like, you
don't necessarily.
Yeah. And that's where the, like, naiveness comes in, where you assume that people are as good as you are, or as good as your friends, or...
And I don't want to throw Hacienda as a company under the bus, because I don't know if this is a normal amount of incident reports when you look at other hospitals.
Well, and it's not it's the people.
It's the people that are working there.
Because they could go work anywhere.
I will say Hacienda has 2.6 stars. But I don't know if that was after the incident. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad.
Anyways.
That's a bad Uber rating.
But then something happened twice that does make me question at least the attentiveness of this facility. 2 different times. Maggots were found on surgical wounds of patients. They didn't get surgeries there, but they would get surgeries at a hospital and come back and live there. And then their license was in serious danger of being revoked the second time that happened.
Just revoke it. It shouldn't.
They still have a license. But, like, they found them, like, someone had a tracheotomy, or I'm not sure. Doctors, please help me out. And it was found there, but only a couple. I can't understand any patient having that on them, because you should be cleaning their bodies and helping them on a day-to-day basis. So you should see, especially if somebody who isn't very mobile has surgical wounds, you should be doing the dressings for that as somebody who's an assisted living nurse.
I just made myself really tall and feel like
Caitlin had to sit up really straight to cope. I don't know why, but she needed a moment. Okay, so back to the pregnancy. So the nurses got the baby breathing. And it's such a relief, because in the 911 call, I started to cry when I listened to it, because in the 911 call, you hear the baby start crying in the background, and you don't know, like, if the baby's going to make it or not. Yeah. And I didn't know at that point, so I was like, oh my god, the baby made it. Like, I was like, oh. It's just really...
You have so much empathy, Sarah. I love you.
I have some empathy.
I have some.
No, I was just like, I had to, like, pause it and be like, oh my god. You hear the baby. Immediately after this happened, Hacienda took action. Like, the company did not wait. So I will say, through all the incidents, they seemed to, from what I can tell, like, take action quickly, and they took it very seriously, and they started investigating right away, as did police. So, who were this girl's regular nurses? Who was her doctor? Who was alone with her? Who volunteered with her? Just, like, who could have had access to this
skip all that. Whose DNA does a baby match?
So the police began collecting DNA samples from males.
Thank you.
From essentially all the males at Hacienda.
Just take everyone,
And I had a major blonde moment when I was researching this, because I'm like, why not the females? I'm like, because I was going to stick up for you guys, so just so you know.
So 2 women can have sex, they can get married, but they cannot make babies.
What? I didn't know that. Okay, so they singled in quickly on one man named Nathan Sutherland. So Nathan had been born in Haiti, and he had 1 sister.
And he makes shitty hot dogs.
And we hate him.
We hate him.
A lot.
Shitty hot dogs. Fuck you, Nathan.
So when he was 7 and his sister was 4, his mom, this is sad, his mom in Haiti wasn't able to take care of them, so she took them to an orphanage out of need and necessity. The 2 were adopted by a very religious couple in the States, and they moved to Arizona in 1993, which was actually a year after our victim fell into the vegetative state.
Yeah.
When she was a toddler. So life in Haiti was really hard for Nathan and his sister. They often went without food, like, for a couple days, and they didn't have decent shelter. So like I said, the family that adopted them was very evangelical and very strict. Mm-hmm. Nathan and his sister loved hip-hop music coming from their culture in Haiti, but his family wouldn't allow them to listen to it, even Christian hip-hop, because it was the devil. But the 2 really loved music. So he and his sister actually started a band when they were a little older. It was a hip-hop, jazz, soul, Christian band. And they even released an album when they were adults in 2011.
What are they called?
It was called something really weird, but if you look up Nathan Sutherland Christian hip-hop, it'll come up. It was like something like SS, soul, jazz, Christian, something. Well, I did find that a lot of their stuff was deleted, and I don't know if it's because of this case.
It's not on Apple Music.
It was on Amazon for some time. We don't care enough to continue. So Nathan, when he was in his 30s, became a licensed practical nurse, and he started working at Hacienda the following year. After he seems like a very
unpractical nurse.
Well, he's a terrible nurse. So Nathan was this victim's regular nurse, and he tended to her for years. And through the years, Nathan also married 2 different times. He had 4 children in his personal life, obviously. And the family was continuing in the footsteps of his evangelical upbringing and short Christian rap music career. So they were, like, really religious. They went to church a lot.
Oh, the fact that you said he was her nurse for years, I cringed because I was like, he could have been doing this for years.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So after a court-mandated DNA test, investigators found that Nathan's DNA matched that of our victim's new baby boy. After a further medical examination of our victim, it was found, this pisses me off, it was found that she had extreme vaginal trauma, ongoing vaginal trauma, and gaping of the perineum, and damage to her vulva, vagina, and anus, and the surrounding areas. Very violent rape. They weren't, Okay.
That means no one was looking at her.
Yeah. So was it Nathan's responsibility to clean her? Because that's convenient. But nobody else was keeping tabs on her hygiene?
But I will say, from my knowledge, and I could be very wrong, I thought they would assign a female to do that. It's not, I don't think that common practice is to have a male clean the female patients. Well, like, I know it happens in your, like, I'm not saying,
I don't know if that's state or federal, because here I have a female gynecologist. In Oregon, I had a male gynecologist for years.
Yeah.
And in Oregon, it was the law that a female nurse had to be in the room while I was getting my exam with a male. Now, I don't know if that's federal or state, like I said.
That's probably state.
I would assume that other states would have similar things where if you're a female has to at least be present.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, and it could be your choice if you're of sound mind, right? Like if I decide to go to a gynecologist appointment or get a massage and I choose a male.
If he's the only one cleaning her, I get how that would go under the radar.
Yeah.
But if there was any other person that
weren't doing their job.
They weren't doing their job. She wasn't as clean as she should be. If it was a family member.
No one was checking up on her.
Nobody knew except maybe him. Well, he definitely knew, but nobody was looking at her health. That's a part that you have to clean all the time.
My guess is he was responsible for it.
Because how else would you... But then I think about the patients with the maggots on their neck.
Yeah.
That person wasn't attentive.
Yeah. And it could have even, like, we don't know. It could have been someone else's job, and he was like, "Oh, I got it. Go take a break."
I have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea.
So right before the birth, Nathan and his wife divorced, and Nathan seemed to be heading in a downward spiral. He had suddenly gained a lot of weight, and he had become increasingly unkempt. He asked coworkers to pray for him. Like, he kind of just went downhill.
Fuck you, personally. Nathan. No one wants to pray for you.
No, we're not praying for you ever. When DNA came back linking the baby to Nathan, he was fired immediately, and Hacienda issued an apology. All of their staff go through background checks, and nothing suspicious came up on Nathan's at all when they hired him. So after the DNA came back, Nathan was arrested for 1 count of vulnerable adult abuse and 1 count of sexual assault with a $500,000 cash-only bail. I really wish that there was a difference, maybe there is, a difference between, like, sexual assault and, like, violent rape. Like, I feel like sexual assault could be like, oh, no, he slapped my private area. Like, this is not that.
Yeah.
At all. So this was in January of 2019. So just a year ago. Yeah. The baby gave birth, oh my God. The baby didn't, in case you guys were like, oh, really? I was wrong. The baby was born. Caitlin can't handle my self.
Not only is it a baby, but it's a boy. That's not funny.
It is fun. It's funny because I messed up.
Oh my God. Oh, Sarah, don't snort. That was me.
Okay, so the baby was born in end of December of 2018, so just over a year ago. So the court case began February 25th of 2019.
Who took the baby, do you know?
Her family did at the Apache Reservation.
Okay.
Her parents took the baby. So the court case began February 25th, so again, about a year ago. And Nathan pled not guilty on all accounts. Simultaneously, Hacienda's longtime CEO, Bill Timmons, resigned, as well as one of the victim's doctors, who was supposed to be keeping tabs on her. How did they not know she was pregnant? That blows my mind. Who was responsible for this poor woman's hygiene? Did they not see the horrific damage to her sexual organs and her anus and all of that? Like, guess not. So staff did notice weight gain, though, with her. Instead, they just reduced her calories. Because, I will say...
Which is not what you need when you're pregnant.
I know. But why would you expect she was pregnant, though? Like, I mean, but also, if she started gaining weight and literally had the same food intake and lied down all day, you'd think you'd check into that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why is she gaining so much weight?
But it's kind of a miracle that because less calories are the opposite of what you need when your body's pregnant. Like,
I can't imagine the pain this woman went through. Because she could still feel pain. She was aware, but she just couldn't tell anyone.
This poor woman. God.
So her calories were reduced. So not only was she pregnant and bedridden, but she was essentially starving because, like you said, she needed more calories.
And the baby's probably taking everything from her.
Yeah. So obviously,
well, she had to have thrown up. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, she had to have been more sick than usual.
Yeah.
The trial is set to go on early this year, like in